Climate change is a continually evolving and pressing issue, and it's also an emotionally and politically charged topic. All of this makes it a particularly difficult subject to address within the standardized framework of the public school system. So, how are public schools navigating these challenges? I spoke to several educators from South Central Vermont about their experiences working with kids in climate change to find out what Vermont public schools are doing and what they could do better. Kathleen Robbins is the place based learning coordinator at Woodstock Union Middle High School and the Marsh Billings Rockefeller National Park, where she constructs and runs programs to connect students to their environment and community. She said that often students tend to tune out when a teacher brings up the subject of climate change because it is an emotionally and scientifically heavy subject. To get around this, Robbins and her colleagues use place and interest based connections to make the subject more approachable. One way they do this is through a program called CRAFT, which stands for Community and Climate Resilience through Agriculture, Forestry, and Technology. It functions essentially as a concentration would in college. Students choose their courses throughout middle and high school with an eye to earning a certain amount of credits in each of the program's main pillars. So, instead of being a one-time conversation in a science class, climate change is studied as an interdisciplinary subject, becoming the common thread in a student's high school education. At the moment, Woodstock is the only Vermont school that offers a program like this. However, Robbins was happy to point out lots of similar efforts throughout the state's public school system. Some schools offer immersive semesters with a focus on environmental studies, such as Burlington High School's City and Lake Semester or Champlain Valley Union High School's Field and Forest Semester. But before these more intense studies, schools can incorporate climate and environmental studies at the kindergarten and elementary school levels through collaboration with other organizations. Kat Buxton, Cat like the animal, is the program director of Regeneration Corps, a group of students and educators dedicated to teaching young people regenerative agriculture and farming techniques and integrating climate and racial justice. Through both this group and her business Grow More, Waste Less, she works with schools to develop and run programs that teach students about the role of agriculture in climate change. In particular, Buxton has run composting programs at Thetford Elementary School and dozens of other public elementary, middle, and high schools throughout the state. She says her primary goals in these programs include helping students realize the agency we have in changing our lifestyles and cultures. She also emphasizes climate justice as a key part of understanding these issues, and looking to Indigenous peoples and other communities that are disproportionately affected by climate change for leadership and insights towards solutions. Buxton would like to see conversations about climate change incorporated more widely into curriculum starting at a young age, but she says school support systems need to be stronger for both teachers and students before that can happen effectively. Teaching even just state-mandated standards is difficult when teachers are trying to address an increasing level of student behavioral problems as kids process modern issues such as climate change.
What I'd like to see is schools pivoting toward thinking in terms of multi-solving, being less reductionist about the work that we do in the world, and even where we send kids off into the professional world. For example, the work that I do is, I think of it as multi-solving. We're addressing many issues at one time by getting kids outside, connecting with nature through Generation Core. A lot of what we're interested in is helping kids develop the ecosystem literacy of place. Because if we don't love what's around us, it's hard to want to protect it or feel like we're a part of it. And we are, in fact, a part of it.
Regeneration Corps isn't the only group in Vermont running programs like this. Mike Lautz is the Climate and Environmental Programs Manager at the Monster Museum of Science, which offers several programs for schools and teachers, including workshop-based class museum visits and a STEM training program for teachers. Last year, Lautz ran a 3-part discussion-based workshop for teens called Youth Leaders for Climate Change. Lautz says he likes to step away from the rhetoric that only company and government actions in addressing climate change are effective. He cites honesty and respect as being key to these conversations, and he says that one of the most respectful things educators can do for their students is give them something to do.
There's so much work to be done, and that can be either crushingly depressing or really, really motivating. So whatever your skill set is, whatever your passion is, whatever like drives you, there is room for you in, if you want to call it like the climate movement. I think that you have to be respectful that this is a thing that is happening. It's not an abstract concept, and it's not something that's happening far away. It's happening right here, and it's something that we all contribute to. And so that's like a real bummer, right? Because it's existential and systemic, but it's also very hopeful because it's something that we all have stake in and stock in, and that all of our actions can touch.
Maintaining a hopeful attitude is also something that Dan Rudell, who's better known as Rudy, sees as essential to education programs about climate change. A watershed scientist with a White River Partnership, Rudy organizes annual programs with local schools to get kids outside and exploring the White River watershed. He says one of his favorites of these is taking his classes freshwater snorkeling in the White River, where they discuss the fish and macroinvertebrates swimming around them. He says experiences early in his scientific career discouraged him from directly using terms such as global warming or climate change in discussions because of the reactions they garnered from his colleagues. Instead, he opts for observation and data-based discussions of recent changes to the watershed and its ecosystems.
Just about everything we do is profoundly influenced right now by what's going on with climate change. So I don't need to get into political discussions or geologic discussions or any of that stuff. It's what are my observations right here, right now.
As an example, he said that last year's unusually high temperatures had caused fish to become so sluggish that young kids were able to wade out into streams and catch them with their bare hands. Rudy says he can point to these situations and to the water temperatures recorded by his organization's water quality monitoring program and direct people towards community actions that can help address and mitigate these issues. So there are many education programs that schools are using and working with to teach kids about climate change, and everyone I talked to agreed that Vermont schools could be doing more. So there are many education programs that schools are using and working with to teach kids about climate change, and everyone I talked to agreed that Vermont schools could be doing more. Kat Buxton said we need to change school support structures to create better environments for talking about climate change. Rudy said we need more time outside. Kat Robbins, more programs with interdisciplinary approaches to climate change. And Mike Lautz emphasized the power of the current public education system as a potential force for social change. So there's plenty of more work to be done, but as Kat Buxton told me, sometimes it's about the small victories.
We know that we can't change everything, but if you can affect one person and the way that they think and influence that in any way, then I think that's really successful.